Here we are for another Learning the Tarot series. This is the Seven of Wands. So of course I've said this for all of these, but I just always want to reiterate, this is just my interpretation and how I'm learning these. And the way that I've been looking at the wands so far is really looking at it as the journey of writing a book and as a life of an author, because each of these cards tells a story if you put them in order. And that story for me, I relate really well with the journey of being an author. So that's my main example. There are plenty of others, and there are so many videos talking about the tarot. Anyway, so this is the way that I'm making mine stand out. So for the Seven of Wands, this is where we have to start defending our work again. Or it could also just be defending your path as a chosen author. So if you decide that you want to be an author full time, you want to do that as your main job to pay your bills, buy your house, buy a car. Not even fancy, but just to have money in the bank to go buy food. You know, to have it be your wage and not need to have a day job. This is the time that you have to start defending it. So in our author journey, this would be after you've hit publish on maybe 1 or 2 books. You've kind of dealt with the imposter syndrome. You might have seen some bad reviews. You might have realized you need to do better on your marketing, whatever. And this is when, especially a lot of us will experience, the people around you will start to mock you and be like, oh, you're gonna be an author one day, huh? And you're like, well, technically I am. I just am not J.K. Rowling or Stephanie Meyer. I'm just not there yet. You might find yourself having to defend yourself a lot from the people who are starting to mock you for what you're trying to do with your life, and that it isn't a real job, and it's except it is. People have been doing it forever. Storytellers have been important to all cultures, and so it's a perfectly valid form of a career. There are so many authors that are out there that are making a living. You just hear about the two spectrums, the extremes of it, where you're either really famous, you mentioned Stephen King, you know exactly what kind of books he writes and how horribly rich he is. And then you hear about the starving artist syndrome, that you're gonna sell all of these books, right? And then you never do, and you're, just panhandling on the side of the road, please buy my book. There's a huge middle ground that not a lot of people acknowledge exists, and that they are able to sell their books enough to make a living, and that they have a modest life. They might be middle class, which is the dream, and eventually maybe you can move into upper class. That would be awesome. But to get out of poverty would be lovely, and most of the well-established authors that you might not know about, but once you do, you're like, oh, there's actually a lot of people here. Okay, because again, there's a big middle ground there. And so you might have to find yourself defending where you're at in the writing process and as a career as an author at this point. And so I feel that's the majority of this card. And it could also just be, again, the imposter syndrome kicking in even harder. Maybe before you were dealing with the marketing and stuff, and now the weight of everything is just crashing on your shoulders, and you're like, who am I to say that I'm gonna do this as a full-time career? The moral of this card, if it's upright, is that you have the skills, resources, and knowledge. Don't give up, which seems to be quite frequently in the past few cards of this message of don't give up, keep going. And also in the writing journey, that is very true. Now, if you were gonna do a one-off book and just have a memoir of my existence, that's one thing, but for a lot of us, it's a full-time career. When this card's reversed, it's kind of the opposite, where you need to find your own inner clarity and your own inner strength to take up the title of I'm going to be an author, or I am an author now, because again, in the storyline we're going with, you've already published your book, so you are an author, you are a writer, you have done it, but you need to have the clarity of owning that, or you need to realize where there's the line of looking at the negative reviews and how much of that is for the author to know and how much of that is for readers to know. Because I've heard this on TikTok, and it's something that I took to heart, and it's that the reviews are not for the author, it's for the other readers, and that as an author, once you hit publish, that book's out of your hands. It takes on a life of its own, and the reviews are the relationship between your created work and the people who will be buying and reading it, and you are no longer involved in that at all. And so a lot of authors don't look at reviews, and they no longer touch that work anymore. It is done. It is dead to them. And I think this card reversed might be a reminder that you need to step up and do that. That you need to sever that tie with your book. You cannot fix it anymore. If the reviews are coming in bad, acknowledge them to some degree, but also know that it's not for you. And books will hit differently with different people. Some people loved Harry Potter. Some people really hated Harry Potter. Some people were kind of in the middle. And like, it doesn't really take away from the story itself. It's more so just how readers are wanting to look at books, how some people want certain types of stories and other people don't, and that's totally fine. For example, I just read Cinder. I absolutely love that series. My husband could take it or leave it. He's like, eh, it's not my thing. Meanwhile, the book that I'm reading that he loved, I'm the exact opposite. He really loved it, and I'm like, it's like not the worst thing written, but like it doesn't completely captivate me like Cinder was, and reversed with him. And so like I feel like when this card's reversed, it's the reminder that like your book will hit readers differently. You need to have the clarity to know that, and to know that like you don't have to argue with every single bad review. You don't need to also stroke your ego with every positive one either. It can also mean that whatever your obstacles have been are officially done. They might not have been as big as you thought they would be, or you've just kind of accepted and moved on and dealt with it, and now you can go about a little more peacefully. You can walk with confidence that you are now an author and that this is what you're doing for your existence, and whether it was dealing with bad reviews, dealing with bad marketing, or the imposter syndrome, you've now overcome it. I also think of this when it's reversed as the reminder, like you have come to accept that like your book may not be like the best thing written, but it's not the worst thing. Having been on TikTok and seeing some of the books that have a following, like these aren't just off the wall random nobody's buying books, like they're semi-popular books, and they have some of the worst writing that ever has existed. And you're like, you know what? I might not be a #1 New York Times bestseller, but I am not that bad. Like, that's what the reversed of this card, I feel like, is like the gist of it. So anyways, those are my thoughts on this card. I would love to hear your interpretations of it in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.